Hey PEM artists, today we're going to be focusing on cityscapes. Now when you hear me say the word cityscape, what do you think of? What comes to mind? Did anybody say city? So go ahead and close your eyes and I want you to imagine that you are driving into Rochester and you are on the edge of town and you're looking towards downtown. Do you start to see a lot of tall buildings? Those outlines of those buildings and the shapes that you're seeing that make them, that would be an example of a cityscape, okay? Maybe you've taken a big family trip up to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and as you're getting closer and closer to that city, you start to see a lot of buildings, right? Some overlapping with them, some really tall, funky shapes, all these things that make our artist eyes go, wowzers, right? We love it. It's very interesting for us to look at. Well, today when we're focusing on creating our very own cityscapes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to focus on shapes, colors, and overlapping. Can you go ahead and say overlapping? Overlapping. So think of something going on top of the other. For example, my two hands right now are overlapping. And you can tell this one is in front of this one. All right, boys and girls, let's get ready to dig in. All right, now we're going to take a look at a couple student examples. As you can see, this student used their construction paper and they cut out large shapes for their buildings, followed by the windows and did some overlapping. Now their background color, that's one solid piece of paper that they glued everything down to. It looks to me like they did some splatter paint. Now I did not ask for any of my kindergarten or first graders to have paint for this lesson, but if that is something that you have tucked away in the back of your craft closet and you have permission, heck yeah, artists, go for it, okay? If not, you will be just fine with this lesson with your construction paper, your glue, scissors are optional as well, and then crayons or markers, something along those lines, okay? All right, let's take a look at another example. All right, this artist got very creative as well with their buildings and their background, okay? You can see that there's a little overlapping, but for the most part, this artist put their buildings right next to each other. What we're going to do is I'm going to challenge you, if you do not have a scissors, or if you have a scissors, you might try some buildings cutting and some buildings tearing them out. That's right, boys and girls. I am going to challenge you to tear out a cityscape for me, okay? One building at a time. Next up is the breakdown. All right, you have a few different options for this lesson when it comes to your materials. If you have a glue bottle or a glue stick, one of those will be very helpful for this lesson for sticking down. A scissors is optional. Crayons or markers or a pencil, something to write with, okay? And then if you remember, way back to, gosh, over a month ago now, it's been so long since I've seen you boys and girls, you guys got a packet of paper home from the art room, and that packet had a bunch of construction paper in it. I want you to grab that packet, and you're going to go ahead, and you're going to sort through, and you might have just scraps left, right, in there. I want you to have one half sheet. Let's see here. I'll drop an image in for you, a half sheet. I want you to have some scrap pieces as well, but I want you to pick a total of 4 colors, okay? So one full size, and then your other ones can be scrap size. So 1, 2, 3, and there's my 4th color, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll go ahead and we will get started. All right, the first thing you need to decide, boys and girls, is what you want your background to be. What you want that to be. If you want it to be daytime, if you want it to be nighttime, go ahead and make that decision. And from those 4 colors that you chose, why don't you go ahead and pick, and this one does need to be your larger paper, okay? So roughly your 9 by 11 or 8 by 11 size, depending on how you tore it, okay? What you're thinking, what is that? But remember, in a pinch, 2 fingers is an inch, right? Okay, so here we go, friends. You're going to go ahead, and I know that I want to have a night sky, so I chose black, okay? If I want there to be stars and a funky background, I can right now color that, or I can do that before I glue everything down, okay? So if you want to add details in that sky, you're welcome to do so now and pause the video, or do before you glue on. All right. When we start to, I'm going to be tearing, but whether you're cutting or tearing, but when you are getting ready to make your buildings, I'm going to grab a scratch piece of paper here. You have a couple options. You can, if you want to, you can take and you can draw those buildings that you want ahead of time. And then if you're using the scissors, you get to go ahead and cut. If you're tearing like myself, you can go ahead and tear now. Tearing is great for the fine motor skills, okay? So I'm really going to recommend, just for a challenge, to try the tearing technique, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my thumbs next to each other, my pointers behind. When I pull this thumb towards me and that pointer, this one goes back. Now, I'm also going to make sure that I tear little pieces at a time. It is okay if it's not perfect. In fact, it's not meant to be perfect. We're going to create a cityscape filled with interesting buildings that are almost, the edges are going to look a little fuzzy, okay? So I'm tearing. Okay, got the one side. Now, when you're done tearing, if you're finding that you can still see your pencil or marker line and you don't want that to show, guess what side you'll put the glue on? Yep, you got it, on the side where those pencil marks are. Okay? So I went ahead and I have my shape here. I'm going to go ahead and set that one down right there. Shape number 1. Okay? Now I still have more green. So maybe I want to go ahead and this one, I'm not even going to draw the line for it. I'm just going to go ahead and tear here. Okay, and set that down over there. Remember how I said we're going to work in some overlapping, right? I'm going to have this would be a really thin, long rectangle. Thumbs next to each other, pulling towards you and away. If you want to start planning a little bit as far as how you want those buildings to lay out or which one's overlapping or whatnot, you sure can. But think about a time you've gone to the city and you, and the shape of the buildings that you've been able to see. Now look at this one. I'm going to go ahead and make the two shapes right on top of each other. All right, I've got that triangle on top and I've got my rectangle on the bottom. I'm not going to worry about tearing right here. I'm going to tear around that outside, okay? If you make a mistake, I'm going to challenge you to turn it into a beautiful, oops. If your fingers are getting tired, you can stop and shake them out a little bit. It's good. This is like bringing them to the art gym. The one thing I don't want you to do is feel frustrated at any point in time. I want you to have fun with this. I want this to be a good experimental tearing and bringing those finger muscles to the gym. All right, I'm going to go and put that down. All right, so black was one color, purple 2, green 3, and now I have to find that fourth piece, and that was this one. I'm going to go ahead and cut out 2 from here. And let's see here, boys and girls. I'm going to make this one kind of a different shape. I'm going to have it kind of have a curve to it. Almost like I'm making a crescent moon or something, right? Okay. Maybe you're a football fan or baseball fan and you can think of some of the different shapes that we have for our stadiums. Okay. Is it okay, do you think, that I'm using an old marker that's wearing out? You bet it is. All right, then we'll go ahead and we'll tear these ones out. How many of you are thinking right now, Mrs. McDonald, that does not look like a city? Well, abracadabra, water wazoo. Let's start overlapping and see what we can do. Remember that you can add details if you want to. Kind of separate out those colors a little bit. All right, what do you guys think? I realize it's getting cut off from the edge there. Okay, so now I need to give some more details, like some windows. Now, if you want to and you're using your scissors, you most definitely can cut out rectangles or different shapes for windows. That's totally up to you. But what I'm going to go ahead and do right now is I'm going to draw them on. Remember to take your time. Think about what shapes those windows appear when you're really far away. Think about what's inside of your buildings. Are they apartments? Are they stores? Are they businesses? Okay. All right, my next step is to go ahead and glue these down if I've already done that background. Otherwise, if you're like, you know what, I want my background, I want to go ahead and just create it just around this, you can glue down and then add. But I like to tell kids to go ahead so that it can really, you can have that overlapping appear and as realistic as possible. So for example, I've got overlapping with these buildings, right? Okay, I gotta mentally take a snapshot of this so I remember how to glue it down again, okay? It's gonna be like a puzzle. Now I'm gonna go ahead Alright, and then abracadabra, wada wazoo. Let's glue down and make a city that looks, I'm not rhyming anymore, boys and girls. We always put the glue on our smallest piece of paper. And if you're like, oh no, I forgot one. As long as you're not taking big breaks in between, you should be able to slide your other ones back in. And if, for example, let's say this one I can't get any further and it's going off the edge of my paper, that is interesting for my artist eyes, and I can always go back and add more windows. All right, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining me today and making a cityscape made out of construction paper and collaging it together by using overlapping and making sure that you've got your foreground, what's closest to us, and that background that's far away. All right, great job, boys and girls. We'll see you again next week.